Pardon me. All right. It is, I don't know what today is. Tuesday, I think? Or maybe it's Monday. No, it's Tuesday. And had a long conversation this morning. Every now and then it takes a while to get started. A phone meeting. So it's about 11:20 right now, 11:22. Later start of the day than I'd like to get, but that's how it goes. All right, so we're going to be inking this part of the cover today, which is the big fight. Color-coded everything. There was a ton of layers on here to get to this stage. Didn't particularly use any photo reference this time around. Oops. What layer am I? Make sure I'm on the right layer. All right, let's just get started. Something's wrong. Okay, here we go. So I'm not one of the artists who do like morning sketches or like a warm-up thing. I haven't done anything today, but you know, I had breakfast and then phone meeting. So there's nothing to it but to do it. Just start. Not all of them, but I suspect a lot of the quote warm-up sketches are actually just full-on sketching that people are doing for themselves. And maybe they're not quite as refined as what they would do for a finished thing, but for the most part, I think there's an illusion that people are just quickly. I don't know. Some of these the warm-up sketches I see are pretty elaborate. Maybe I'm just jealous. This stabilization's on too high. It's funny, the stabilization thing, it just sort of totally depends on my mood, how quickly my computer is moving, several other different elements. Sometimes I like it on really high, sometimes I have it on much lower. Man, it's crazy. I'm so not used to talking as much as I do on these videos, and I'm not like raising my voice or anything, but my voice is like kind of going because of it. That's how isolated our existence is. Taki and I talk quite a bit in the morning. We talk a little bit more at night. Most of the day, we're just head down, working, typing, keeping busy. So yeah, I'm not used to this much talking. This doesn't feel right, but I'm just going to finish it out right now. Yeah, I got to revisit that hand on this other cover too we were talking about yesterday. But before that, I'm gonna get this stuff done. Then I can take a really clear look at that cover with Jagger's hand holding the bowl to see, am I happy with it? Can I do better? Do I have time? And it's going to be all black around them and stuff, so it's going to be this white highlight going throughout things, but certain spots I'll let the fold sort of dictate a barrier, and other times I'm just going to cut through with weight or just erase that section. But we'll see once we get there, though. As I'm working with this digital brush, I'm like going with more and less pressure and get this line variation, you know, thicker than. I'm gonna ask Taki for this part, this foreground character. He's going to be pretty colored, very dark, almost silhouette. I'm gonna ask her for that anyway, and then she'll do whatever feels right when she's actually tackling the page. When I'm working with basically two colorists, it's Taki and Nick Filardi. I don't give either of them a lot of direction. They're very different colorists and they have very different instincts, and they always give me something way better than I would have imagined. So sometimes I'll just ask for like, yeah, I want this foreground figure to be much darker, or I'll hand them a layer with a shadow on it, as you've seen me do before. But that's it. And even then, they're free to use or not use it, And I think that's a big part of the spirit of collaboration between artists and colorists. Suggestions should always be welcome from the colorist and from the artist. But that's all it should be, is a suggestion. And even with Brian, sometimes, I'd say 90% of his notes will follow through on. But every now and then, I just don't agree with the note that he has. And I'll either just not follow through and he'll not say anything, or we'll discuss it. Very rarely does it become like a real back and forth, like where we're kind of butting heads a little bit. But even when we do, it's all out of respect. He respects that I'm right and he's wrong, and that's it. I joke like that because we've been working for 25 years or whatever, so we've got to figure it out. All right, he's done here. Let's get this tie. Actually, I'm going to change this tie to nah, I'll just leave it here. I was going to move it so it overlaps more with this other panel, but just the way her shoulder is and where it's fine. I'm trying not to over-explain myself. Actually, let me try and go forward and back. What I mean by that is like Valentine here is the next character, even though there's a little bit of overlap on him, but he's kind of next in the forefront. So instead of going to this guy, I'm going to go right into Val. And I'm just going to ink right over where the other characters are and then create new layers and erase it. So that way my line flows nicely. See, I'm not going to worry too much about how these other guns and stuff overlap his body. Like here, a whole arm is blocking him, but I'm more concerned about and I overextended here because originally his shoulder was going to pinch out here into the black, but it wouldn't have as much impact because you wouldn't see the line go thick to thin here. It's subtle, but I think that kind of stuff matters in creating a sense of depth for character and objects. And again, mostly inking all of this with the same thickness brush, and I'm just relying on pressure to give me the variations. I mean, it's kind of what you do anyway, but I don't know. I imagine you can switch back and forth between brushes quite a bit, or brush sizes. And I will for faces because it gets a little bit thinner. But generally, I think it's fine just using the same thickness of a thick brush. In fact, when I used to ink with a brush, like a Raphael or whatever, exclusively, I started out inking with like a really thin brush, and then I was introduced to working with a thicker brush, like a size 3 or 4 or even a 6. And it's kind of hard to talk about without seeing, but I thought the thinner brushes would always just give me finer lines, but the truth is the brush was always healthy enough. It could hold a lot more ink with a thicker brush and give me just as fine line works as a thin brush. And it was much more efficient because I could carry all this much more ink with it. Again, I'm sorry, it might not make too much sense without being able to see it, but so I'm kind of carrying that thought over here. Just use a thicker brush than I would normally think I would need. That way I can get some really thick lines in here when I want them, and still get really thin lines. Yeah, sometimes I feel like these videos are really just a masterclass in babbling. I might have to play around with that because once this becomes all black, that's just going to look really, his knuckle pinky area there gets really small. Val's got a little bubble butt here, look at that. Okay, it's looking good so far. I mean, I'm happy with it. And stupid and technical thing, but like the top of this gun should be pulling backwards as it fires. Um, but maybe I'm not actually going to do that. Maybe his gun isn't firing, other people's are. I gotta admit, I had trouble, you know, been so many shootings and stuff and crazy people, and the idea of kind of featuring guns so heavily on our covers sometimes. I had to think a lot about it. For a bit, I was going to try not to do it at all, but it is what it is. I'm not going to hide the contents of the book, but I'm more thoughtful about the way I present them. I don't know. It doesn't always work out. Sort of the moral thought and the artistic needs sometimes they'll collide. All of these characters are criminals anyway. Just keep that in mind. None of these are really good guys. By their own moral code and the world that they've chosen to be in, yeah, sure, they're more moral than most. But they could be in a line of work that doesn't require killing people. But I don't know that Val here would make a very good accountant. Maybe a barista. He'd probably make some pretty good coffee. I'm gonna play around with his hair and the shapes a little bit more as I go along. I feel like got him down pretty good. I'm gonna lower the opacity on him some. Create another layer to ink this guy back here since his arm is like coming over him. I want to take care of this first. So I really got to think about the form and the shape and how to express folds in his clothing as it wraps around Val's body. There are other artists out there I know that would make this much more convincing. But I have a way, and I'm not ashamed of anything. But like everybody else, like if you're a new artist and an older artist, it's hard not to compare. It just is. So if you're just starting out in comics and just starting out drawing and you have confidence issues, so and so is better, I'm not as good as this or that, that doesn't go away. And it's okay. It's okay to have those thoughts. Just don't let them drive you. You know, don't make your decisions based on, oh, so and so would do better than this. You're not so and so probably can't do certain things better than you can. There's a couple artists I keep mentioning throughout this session, like Mike Hawthorne, Dave Johnson, and I admire their work so much. I learned from them. Dave, especially, like I said, he was kind of one of my mentors as I was coming up in the '90s. By coming up, I just mean just starting out and stuff. Um, a lot of what I do cover wise, I often have Dave in mind. I'm like, oh, how would Dave handle this? Um, we have different aesthetic and we have different vibes and stuff. But like one of the things I love about Dave's covers is they're conceptual. You know, they're conceptual, but they also still have like a heavy design element. Like a lot of my favorite guys who are conceptual, they tell a story on the page, but it's not so much a design story. Whereas David kind of mix in design with the storytelling, which I find super fascinating. And Chris Samney is like great at telling a story with his covers, and especially his pinups. He's so good at it, and he can get designy, of course, but it's almost like a panel or something that he's creating as a cover or a pinup. Whereas Dave runs more with like a bit of Saul Bass and other abstractness. And there's just different approaches, right? And Chris is another guy I think about sometimes when I'm doing covers and pieces. Like, does this tell a story? You know, and then my favorite artist, you guys know, Mignola. Like, I don't know if he's doing either. It's just design and weirdness, and it's so unique. You can't even compare it to anything else, and that's awesome. And if Mignola was constantly trying to compare himself to other people or try and be whatever he would think companies want from him or need from him, imagine how different his art might look now. He might not have that special uniqueness about it. So yeah, don't sweat it. Don't sweat other artists, other creators. What are they doing? Be inspired by them. Pick up cues, that kind of thing. But don't let it get you down. Definitely don't let it stop you. Let it inspire you. Same thing with writing. You know, I'm surrounded by some of the best writers in comics, in mainstream comics, are my close friends. I can't write anything like them, but it doesn't stop me. Uh, doesn't make me feel bad. Doesn't stop me from sharing my ideas with them, even though they could see right through them and see 10 different better versions as I'm explaining what I'm trying to do. But I don't let that intimidate me. You know, helps that I know them, that I know they're not judging me. You know, they're just like me. They just want to see people be creative and share their ideas. And it inspires me and I keep going. All right, so his fist should be, it's the other way around. So I'm lowering the opacity of what I'm going to erase here. Oops. His gun isn't going to be erased though. His gun is in front of his hand. Just trying to create a whole bunch of layers here. Layers meaning layers of these characters on top of each other. It's supposed to be like a fist fight, like a pile-on. Um, oh, my dog is barking downstairs, so I might have to check on him. It usually means the cat is trying to eat his food. Oops. I have to clean these guns up too. I don't mind doing these basic fake guns, as I call them. They're just shapes. They're not like technically what these guns would look like. All right. Now I'm going to combine these two layers. Oh, that's pretty cool. Or a different kind of cover if I got rid of the arms here and stuff. Maybe just this is just a color. This, I don't know. That's pretty neat. I like that silhouette. Anyway. I'm going to create a new layer just so that I don't accidentally draw over anything I don't want to. Or I can allow my lines to cross over the other drawing without sweating too much. Like I could have that go here if I really was trying to make a super smooth line and not sweat, you know. Sweat stopping the line here, and then if I stop the line here, it might affect the quality of that line. Tough guy. Yeah, he's definitely behind him, but in front of him. Oops. Okay. I'm not sure when these videos are going to come out. Let's say November 15th is today. So we'll see what time, well, when they actually come out. I don't know. The idea was just to record them first, and then we'll figure it out later, you know. It's a lot of comics are like that. A lot of comics work is just kind of on the fly, which I like. Too much planning. Planning is important, but I don't know. I like a little bit of stress, a little bit of tension to like jumping into a deep end of something and swimming. I can go too fast, too far. I'm sure if you were paying attention to the first cover, you would have seen that. This is so embarrassing. When I'm writing out the wanted poster, there's a ton of spelling mistakes. And it's just because I was just moving as quickly as possible, just that forward momentum need that I have. I wasn't really, I'm thinking of other things as I'm typing it, like the spacing of the letters and where it appears on the page, but I'm not looking at the spelling, and I misspelled words like unknown. uh, not difficult words or anything. It was just being sloppy. And that's something I struggle with is, yeah, I'm all gas, no brakes, and that serves me in a lot of ways. But sometimes it's a problem. I think if I have any commonalities with Kirby, it's that thing that just move forward, full speed ahead, don't look back on a page, on a design. Most of my designs I don't do separately. I actually do them on the page as I'm working. Yeah, I make exceptions for that, of course. I think on World of Krypton, I did a couple of sketches at the beginning, and almost everything was just designed on the page. From the city to costumes, their secret police characters, the villain. Just go, go, go. Mostly it serves me well. And I remember my buddy Nick Darrington saying that to me. That I was like, he says, in that way you're like Kirby. It's all gas, no brakes. And there's good and bad that comes with it. This guy's head is huge. That's better. Um, in fact, I mean, I've been moving fast all of my career to the point that wait, I want to ink on that there. Okay, I've been moving fast all of my career to the point that it's difficult for me to actually slow down. Um, and then when I do slow down, I tend to choke up. So I stopped fighting it. I stopped telling myself that moving fast was bad and I'd be a better artist if I took more time. Because every time I do take time, I lose something. I lose some sort of energy. Um, it just, yeah, I choke up. Things that end up looking stiff and over rendered. Not every single time, but too many times. Enough that I've recognized it as a pattern within myself. And I go, okay, all right, just accept who you are. You want to move fast. Do it and put some checks on yourself. Just make sure I'm not being sloppy. There's a big difference. And I have been sloppy sometimes. I've caught myself and I look back on some stuff that was published. Not giant works, but um, usually just panels here or there. I'm like, or cover. I'm like, I wish. No, not so much on covers. The cover is the worst thing I do. Like I said, is I choke up by taking too much time and quote trying too hard, and I'll choke the life out of it. Um, and I guess the other thing I can do on covers that besides choking up is like I move too quickly through the design process. I'm not putting enough thought into. Come on, I'm not putting enough thought into my design process, and yeah, sometimes I think if I'd spent more time sketching out more iterations or just thinking a little bit harder about this piece, then it would be better. But I can guarantee you, every artist feels the same, unless they're arrogant. Yeah, no, it's always good. I always do what I intended to do. You don't have to be insecure to be an artist. I know plenty of very confident artists, and they're not arrogant. You know, confidence and arrogance are two different things. But you definitely see a lot more arrogance in comics than confidence. It's not an easy. It's not an easy combination. It certainly doesn't come natural to a lot of people. It always cracks me up in comics because this is a pretty small field, you know. So you want to be king of the smallest hill. You want to be like, yeah, I'm a comic book rock star. Okay. Just be an artist, be a writer, be a creator. Let the work speak for itself. Don't worry about the rest. It's all distractions. Take it for someone who's had careers and lost them. You know, before Powers, I had broken in really early in comics. I was 14 when I was first published. I think I was penciling and inking Judge Dredd monthly for DC by the time I was like 20 or something like that. And by the time I was like 22, 23, I don't know. I must have been younger than that during Judge Dredd because my son was born when I was 23, and by that time, most of my career had gone. I lost it by not being focused and Well, I got the Judge Dredd job before I was really ready for it. I had a lot of potential, and I was in the right place at the right time. But I wasn't really ready for the gig, and it kind of shit the bed a little bit. Um, then I did Foot Soldiers over at Dark Horse, and that went really well. I was very proud of it, and I felt like I was going somewhere. But that's right when the comic book industry collapsed. That '90s collapse of the industry, and jobs were gone, stores were closing down, companies weren't hiring anymore. So I went from like early child prodigy to washout by the time I was like 23, 24. I had to get a regular job. Worked as security guard. And that's where I started sketching out powers and Mice Templar and Hammer of the Gods. And I was basically out of the industry for about a year and a half. So when I had this sort of second breath with powers, with things coming back, I still wish I had more focus because I was so excited to have all these opportunities. I kept spreading myself too thin, and I really wish that we had just been able to just make powers monthly without any interruptions. But I was constantly trying other comics and stuff, none of which I regret or anything. It's just I do with even more maturity now than then. I just wish I knew how to Charlie Adlered it, and just completely focus on powers because there still will be time for the other stuff later. But the whole point is, I've had huge ups and downs in my career, and I appreciate every single moment and everything that I have. And I'm telling you, all this other stuff, the Twitter and Instagram and social media, going to conventions, which is great, not putting it down. It's not the job. It's not why we're here. And if it is, you're not going to have a great time. Because at some point that all goes away, or it lightens up, or you fall out of favor, whatever. And if you don't love comics, it's a hard place to make a living. It's a hard place to stay. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe other people can do that. Maybe they can make a sort of commercially, you know, rock star-y, personality-driven career. And if that's what you want, then all right. But I think that's in the vast minority. I think most of us are here because we love it. Even those who don't seem like it. We love it. It's got to be why people get so angry about comics sometimes. It's because we love it and we want to see it do better, even if we disagree about what that means. I don't know. Anyway, focus on the work. Don't get distracted by other things because it'll bring you down one way or the other. Whether you're comparing yourself or, well, usually it's comparisons, right? Because comparisons bring up all the other feelings like jealousy and spite. And I don't pay attention to what's going on in the industry. Not personality wise or stuff. I'll see people complaining about things on Twitter. It takes me so long to figure out what they're talking about. And then I'm like, well, why did I just spend 10 minutes trying to figure this riddle out? It doesn't affect me. And that I did find out, I didn't care actually. Rarely. Some of the publishing end of that sort of rumor mill stuff or whatever, that can interest me because it can affect, how we publish, who the publishers are, etc. But for the most part, it's all out of our control anyway. Just focus on what you can control. The page. Let me ask you this. What else in your life can you control so much as what you write or draw on the page? I haven't written for television, but I have friends who have, and I've been involved in television shows a little bit, enough to know that like it's almost never what you intend it to be, what's written in the script and what gets onto the page. But in comics, especially if you're writing and drawing them yourself, whatever you want, man. I mean, look at, like I said, My Hero Mignola, just the craziest stuff. Craziest stuff. You couldn't pitch. You couldn't pitch Screw on Head. You couldn't pitch Prisoner of Mars or Axor or any of this stuff. Only Mike can do that. And he can only do it because it's all him. Imagine trying to pitch The Rocketeer as a film if it didn't exist as a comic. Anyway. I'm going to take this soapbox, push it aside. Nobody's interested in that. That stuff's also, like I said, it's distraction. Even me talking about that stuff. It's distraction. I'm not sure how I feel about this line work here. It might be too thick or something. I'm not sure. We'll see when I pull back the page. And sometimes I like these really thick, kind of rounded lines at the end. For folds and stuff, especially like a nice plop. Plop. And it works. I don't know why. It's not something I would have done years ago. I started to recently. All right. Okay, I'll lower these layers. All right, I'm going to do these guys next. So let's do this. I'm going to make another layer. Let's get in closer. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller just because these guys are much further in the back. So I was at 64. Let's go around 44, 45. It's funny, when I first started drawing comics, one of the things I hated the most was suits and collars. And while I admit I still don't quite have a great handle on how suits work, meaning different suits, they're designed differently, right? So like a tuxedo collar versus a working collar, a suit collar that's nice versus a suit collar that's cheap. I don't really know how to differentiate all of those, and it's a lot of kind of just shapes. Luckily I'm a little abstract and cartoony, so I can get away with a lot of non-specific choices like that. So that aside, that not really understanding how suits fit or what a cut of a suit should look like or that kind of stuff. And yes, I could study it, but I don't have. It's just not in me. Not the studying part, but the memorizing suits, no matter what. Can't explain it. But anyway, now I love drawing suits, even though I'm faking it. I'm faking the funk, but I love a collar. I love drawing curved collars, and just the way a collar can flip up like this over the face. It just gives it nice dimension. And it's an interesting thing you'll discover as you get older too. There's stuff that you would draw when you're younger that you hated, that you grow into and you really enjoy drawing when you get older. I used to have trouble just drawing older people in general, and until I saw my own face start to, get folds and wrinkles and stuff, that I start to understand, oh, this is how that happens. And heavy eyelids. That's only in the last 4 years I figured out how to draw these kind of heavy eyelids. It's this area here, this kind of fat that grows up around the outside of the eye and over the eyelid. I just recently started to kind of figure that out, and I love it. You'll see a lot of that in the Powers Best of or Best Ever graphic novel, kind of our last Powers thing, where we get to see Walker and Dina as older characters. And yeah, I definitely drew Dina with those heavy eyelid things. I think she looks great. I love drawing Walker, older Dina and Walker. They're really fun. Still struggle with really older characters. Getting really wrinkled skin on faces is still a little hard for me. Just in understanding how far to take it. And sometimes it works out great, other times, But I'm sure 10 years from now, as my face gets even more wrinklier, I'll figure it out. I'll start liking it. And I'll be like, I don't know how to draw them young people anymore. We'll see. I also got to figure out more of the black spotting in these suits and stuff, but I'll create another layer, yet another layer, and I'll get into that later. Coming together pretty good. All right, let's do this knife coming across his face. So lower the opacity, create another layer. Keeping in mind this is still a slightly smaller brush than I was using up front, but I think it's okay because his hand has got some details. Knuckles and stuff. All right. Yeah, sorry. I might touch it up later. We'll see how it looks all together. That'll be the test. So now I'm gonna just erase some of the stuff underneath the knife. I think that's it. Okay. Yeah. Combine those two. Fight code. All right. Oops. Let's see his belt. It's the guy behind Val. Oh. All right, yeah, I'm happy. Let's go with this cat next. I guess I'll do Val's face. Might be getting close to finishing here anyway. Finishing just for a couple hours. Gotta go do lunch. Alright. There's his face. I guess. Yeah. I realize that leaves him no space for his neck in here, so it's gotta go like this. There we go. Meh. I'm 90% happy with this face. Alright. Let's drop in a little bit of black here. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, I'll figure these out a little more. Actually, I shouldn't do that because the template's showing. There we go. Just give us an idea of some of the weight here. Oops. I mean, that might look good. Just fill that in completely black. But I'll probably do another layer and give it a test. See if it looks good. It's just more of a silhouette. A lot of times that happens. Like, I'll draw this sort of detail into something, and then afterwards I realize, oh, it's better if I just black it all out. All right, I think this is it for now. I'm going to come back and we'll finish up this other page a bit later. See you soon.